there's been a tremendous amount of progress in most countries in South Asia towards meeting the MDG goals on primary completion and on gender parity. In most of our countries, over the last 10 years, the governments have really taken significant steps and developed and implemented programs which are aimed at meeting the MDG goals, and these programs have been fairly successful. In India, for example, about 8 to 10 years ago, there were 25 million children out of school, which contributed to about 1/4 of the whole world's out of school population. And now that number is down to about 8%, with about 7-8 million children still out of school. So in 7-8 years, the government implemented a program called the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan program, which is the Education for All program, which really focused on getting kids into school and increasingly focused on getting them good quality education. On another MDG, for example, the gender parity, Bangladesh's story, which is well known around the world, is really quite remarkable. In the early 90s, only about a third of the children going to secondary school were girls. Now that number is about 55 to 56%. So in fact, there's more girls than boys at the secondary level. And this is owing to the government's implementation of what they call the Female Secondary Stipend Program, where girls got stipends and their families got stipend to encourage girls to come to school. So other countries also in the region, and I'm just giving you two examples, have really focused on these MDGs and have really put their money where their mouth is, and results are beginning to show on the ground in very large numbers.
I think in the case of education, there's certainly been quite of a degree of progress in terms of both access and gender parity. Challenges now are essentially working on the quality of education and actually making sure that the kids that go to school actually learn. That's a big challenge, increasing completion rates and improving the quality of education at all levels. Obviously, the averages also, there is the average doesn't mean that everybody is getting the same quality access, and certainly there is also differences in the quality and access both across region and across income quintiles. So working in terms of improving the quality for everyone and focusing on the quality of education in the rural areas and for poor people is especially important.
Yeah, I think this is our kind of key challenge, and this is not just a challenge in South Asia, it's a challenge which most developing countries and most of the bank's client countries are facing, is that of improving education quality. I think everyone recognizes the quality of education is pretty low in most of our countries, and increasingly governments are putting more emphasis on interventions, both supply side and demand side interventions, as well as interventions aimed at governance, improving the governance and accountability of the system, interventions aimed at getting better teachers hired in the system and getting them adequate training so that they're able to teach the children effectively. There's a lots of packages of interventions that governments are putting in place aimed at focusing on this quality divide and trying to improve the quality of education. And I'm glad to say that we are also trying to work with the governments on these challenges. And the quality challenges is really much more difficult in some sense to overcome than the access challenges. But I think with the governments really turning their attention increasingly to this issue and focusing their attention on this issue, I'm very confident that over the next 5 to 10 years, these countries will make significant progress in addressing the quality issues.